What's up, good people? It's your boy Matt from Music Producer School. Hope everybody's doing well today. I told y'all a few weeks ago when I got back from my out of town project that I was working on. When I returned, we had just had a hurricane, and we have another hurricane coming to swing by tomorrow. So hopefully that'll work out okay. I don't think it should affect our class schedule at all. So I will be seeing y'all again on Saturday. If something changes, I'll make a post to all of the social media platforms. Real quick before we get started, I just put a link in the comments to join the Music Producer School community. If you have not joined the Music Producer School community, click that link. It's the Facebook community link in there, and go ahead and click join, and I'll approve you as soon as I can get to it. On Saturdays every week, I go to the Facebook community page. It's a private community, and I let you guys and girls post your music there, and I will listen to your songs there live, and I'll give you feedback. I listen on headphones and my studio speakers, and just kind of give you an overall just kind of feedback as far as the mix, the songwriting, the overall vibe, the whole thing. So if you have music that you would like to test out, eventually I'd like to get some other members while we're on there, let them comment as well. But so far it's been a lot of fun. Everybody's been posting some really great stuff. So be sure to join that, and the link is in the comments right there. So today, I do also have another feature I wanted to test out today, which I know we have a lot of international students following, and I assume a few in the States as well. I have the ability now to actually let you guys. I've said before I would love for you to comment with your questions. So I have the ability now to let you, from either your computer or your phone, you don't need any special software to do it. You can actually get on here live with me and chat with me and ask your questions. So I'm going to call this Chat with Matt, and I'm going to put this link in here. And if at any point you would like to give me a call on it works on your mobile phone. I believe it's Android and iPhone. So just click that Ecamm live interview button, and you should be able to chat with me live. And if you have any questions, I'll try to answer them. And this is a new feature, so I wanted to try and test it out a little bit. So if you'd like to chat with me personally, go ahead and click that link, and as soon as you get it ready to roll, I'll see that you're calling me, and I'll put you on and make sure you ask your question. So with that being said, let's go ahead and get into mastering part 2 today. So in mastering part 1 a couple days ago, I was kind of just giving some different tips and tricks as far as like ways to use compressors and limiters. Not putting just one on a track, but doing what's called serial limiting and compression. And we're going to expand on all this stuff a lot more in the weeks to come. It's just, again, I'm trying to start from the beginning for people who are not really familiar with all this stuff, and then we're just going to build it up into a more and more advanced type of a thing. So let's flip over to Trusty Ableton here. And as always, all of this stuff is going to apply to any DAW that you're using. It doesn't matter. So what I wanted to talk about today briefly was when it comes to mastering, it's often hard because not all of us have, maybe a great set of speakers. You might be working on headphones. Your headphones might suck. All these different things, right? So what I wanted to show y'all today was kind of an extension of the mastering tip I gave at the end of class a couple days ago, which was this idea about referencing. So if you're using reference tracks, you're going to be able to tell not only by listening, you'll be able to hear where things are louder. If the reference, when I say reference track, in case you missed that, it means just taking a track that sounds good, that you know was done professionally, mixed and mastered. You know, maybe it's a radio song or your favorite DJ's new song or producer, and you're taking that song and you're putting it into your session. You're making sure that the reference song is not going through your mastering chain. That's super important. And if you missed that, go back to the previous lesson a couple days ago where I covered that, and showed you how to route that in your DAW so that you're not double mastering your reference track, because then you're never going to get it as loud as the reference track. So be sure, just again quickly, if you're referencing, your reference track has to be going straight out to the speakers. Your track, you want to go through your mastering chain. So make sure that your reference track does not go through your mastering chain on the master channel. So I wanted to do a couple more things about reference tracks, because again, it would be great if we all had a kick-ass studio that was soundproofed and treated and awesome speakers, but the reality is we don't all have that. So how can you make sure that your stuff doesn't sound good on your laptop, in your headphones, but then you go out to the car and check it and it's terrible? Or you go and bring it to a DJ at a club and say, oh, play my track, and he does play it and it sounds way, way weak compared to all the other tracks that he's playing. So how can we make sure that that doesn't happen? So I wanted to show y'all today. I was going to focus primarily on this tip about reference tracks and how you can make sure that doesn't happen to you. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to go into my my DJ folder here, and I'm actually going to try and find one of my own songs that I put out. I believe I have them in here so I don't get in trouble. Let's do this one. Oh, that's somebody remixed my song. Summer mix. There we go. And this is under my my DJ alias, which is called Matthew Rich. If y'all want to check out Matthew Rich's stuff, you can go to MatthewRichMusic.com, and I believe that will bring you to the right place. Let me make sure before I send you there and it doesn't. Yeah, that'll bring you to the Facebook page. So this is a song that I released in Europe. It actually went to, I think, #3 on the dance charts, in Germany and one other place, I want to say. So I'm not really concerned about what the track sounds like, and I'm not really worried about you guys hearing it per se, but I wanted to show you this trick. So that's my track. And now let me pull in this Martin Solveig track. Now what I talked about or a couple days ago rather in class was this idea of, you know, it's not always just listening. And some people, you know, especially older producers and engineers, I used to hear all the time, oh, working in a computer is terrible because you're always looking. And that can be true to a degree. You start looking with your eyes more than listening with your ears. I have something to address that as well, but that'll be for another day. The thing about using your eyes and your ears, it can be great because 2 is better than 1. So if you're using both, it's going to help you out. So you can see here just by kind of, and what I would do if I was really working on mastering this track. So my track up here has a DJ intro. It's probably like a 16-bar intro. And then the intro of the actual song starts about here. So what I usually do is I'll try and line up my reference track to where I'm listening kind of to the same stuff. So you see, just in the waveform, you can tell it gets lower. So I have a bit of a drop here. So the same thing in the Martin Solveig song, it has a drop. So if I'm comparing using a reference track, I'm usually going to try and, so I might even do something like this. I will say this also, I do sometimes like to time the tracks together so that the beats are almost the same, and that way I can just flip back and forth without kind of being thrown off with the beat. That's not completely necessary, but just something I kind of like to do. So I might even chop up my reference track like this. So that way I can compare and I know like, okay, this is the drop of his song. So I might kind of compare those sections like that. And then I could turn my loop on here and this is just going to keep looping over and over. And I could check that back and forth, kind of showing y'all how I did a couple days ago with that solo back and forth deal. And that way you're checking the same parts of the track, because you don't want to be listening to your reference track where there's a breakdown and then you're referencing your drop where it's just slamming. You want to try and find a song that's in the same vibe, that's in the same genre, and you want to be comparing the same pieces. Now, I also mentioned last time that when you're mastering, you typically want to start with the loudest part of the track. So that way you're not mastering, you know, at the beginning of the track where the energy and the volume is going to be low. But then when you really start slamming the track in your drop or your breakdown or your chorus or whatever it may be, and then all of a sudden the volume starts really getting up there, well, now your compressors and your limiters are going to just be working like crazy if you set them to the beginning of the track when the volume was a lot lower. So that's another tip to remember. Start mastering in your loudest part of your track and then work backwards from there. And usually once you get the loudest part right, the rest of it's going to be fine most of the time. So I wanted to show you all this trick, and this is for everybody that doesn't have, you know, maybe a good set of speakers or, you know, a good set of headphones, or if you really want to be able to look and see what's going on. Because like I said, using your eyes is a good thing as well. So let me see if I can find... this guy. So I wanted to show you all this because this plugin is a it's a free plugin, and I think everybody should be able to download it without any issues. So I wanted to show y'all how this works without, you know, getting into the super specific stuff tonight, or today rather, about it. I wanted to just show y'all how this thing works. Okay, so this is something called I created called the Master Analyzer. And again, I haven't put this out on my website yet for Music Producer School, but I will be putting it out soon. So I wanted to show y'all kind of how this works. So this plugin right here is called Voxengo Span. Voxengo Span. Now, the cool thing about this plugin is it's not just a mastering plugin, it's a metering plugin as well. So when I play my track here, and I'm going to turn these down so they're not crazy loud because they are mastered. So we'll turn both of these down. So I'm going to put this out on my website very soon, and I would encourage you guys to check it out. But basically the way it works is this. So Voxengo Span is a free plugin that you can just download if you do a Google search. And when you first put this on the track, you're gonna play your track and nothing's gonna happen. So I'm playing right now. Now, what this plugin does is it shows you the waveform, but the way that I set it up down here is it's broken down into 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 13 different frequency bands. So what this allows you to do, and especially for stuff like the low subs and the bass, are very hard to get right if you don't have a properly treated room with proper speakers, with a good subwoofer, everything's tuned the right way. So what this allows you to do is you can actually solo just each one of these select bands that you're working on while you're mastering. So what you would do is you would put your mastering chain before the analyzer, the master analyzer, and then you can solo each different band. So this is the low band. So you're not really going to be able to hear it on your speakers probably. But what this does is it allows you to set a loop here. So say I wanted to again go to the loudest part of my track, and this is like my drop, right? Which I think is actually like over here. So I'm going to loop these 4 bars. So while I have that on loop, I can actually play it, and I can see where my low bands of energy are going to. So this is just in the 30 kind of to the 80 hertz band. I can also solo my 60 to 120 hertz. And I can just keep moving through these bands. You're going to see them jump up like this. And you'll start probably hearing a little more of the track. So as I move through each of these bands, I'm able to actually see in a very limited and narrow way what's going on in each frequency. So maybe let's say I have really harsh highs. I can just solo these highs and see what's going on in the highs. Now, that's pretty cool in itself, but where this thing really shines is, check this out. Now, I'm not going to be able to play the full spectrum Martin Solveig song without getting in trouble with the Facebook and the YouTube police, because they don't like you playing other people's music. But it actually doesn't matter, because I want to show y'all how I use this in real life practice. So now you see how it kind of works, right? You can solo each one of those individual bands, because what happens is when you're trying to master, especially, you're listening to the whole song and you're like, oh, the lows, I need some more lows. Well, you bump up the lows, but now that perception of volume to your ears is going to make the highs sound different. And then if you mess with the highs, it's going to make the lows sound different. So what this tool does is it actually allows you to break them down into each band, and it lets you visually kind of see what's going on in your song. So let me show you how I would use this in a real life situation. On my master channel, I would put my analyzer, because of course I want my song to be going through the master channel, right? Now let's say really quick, for example, let me set up a quick little mastering strip here. So let's say I was doing a compressor, an EQ8, and this was my mastering chain, right? Well, what I would do is I would group those so that way I can just flip them on and off. Now, this is going to be a little bit more of an Ableton specific type trick, but you can do this in other DAWs, but I wanted to just show y'all kind of how I would do it in Ableton. So what I would do here is I'm going to turn off my track number 2, and I'm going to do that keyboard command thing where I hit Command K, and now I can set a key command, meaning just a keystroke, that's going to turn on and off a certain channel, right? So what I want to do is I'm going to click my channel 1, and I want to hit my little tilde key to hit channel 1, and then I'm going to hit channel 2. I just click channel 2, and now I'm going to hit the tilde key again. So when I turn off my stuff, and then I hit that tilde key, you see how I can just switch between both of them going on and off, right? Now, like I said, if I'm trying to reference a track, I don't want channel 2 going through this mastering chain down here. So when I hit channel 2, I want to also make sure that my mastering chain's power button right here is also turned off. So let me make sure. I have to go back and click my channel 1 on. So now when I hit my little tilde key command that I just did, I should be turning on channel 2, and I'm going to be turning off my mastering chain down here. Let's make sure it works. Good. So now channel 1 with the mastering chain, channel 2 without the mastering chain. Now again, this is just turning off this mastering chain, the compressor, the limiter, and the EQ. It's a separate group chain from this master analyzer. And let me show you why I did that. So this is the beauty of this thing. if I turn on my track, channel 1, and now my mastering chain is on, and I solo, again, the super low stuff, the subs are really hard to get right. A lot of times you're going to find you master your track, you bring it out to the car, you bring it to the club, and it's going to sound lower, either lower than it should in the lows, or it's going to be way too much in the lows. It's hard to tell depending on what you're listening on and how your room is set up. So I'm going to hit solo on just the low sub frequencies, and I'm going to play this part of my track. And let's move this over just a little bit so we're getting a good part of both of these tracks. Let's go to like right here. So you can see here. Now also I have my limiter set down at -3. So let's get it back in the ballpark. So you can see here that my track, the volume, and when I put, this is what I like about this Voxengo plugin. When I put my cursor here with my mouse, I can see in the upper right hand corner, it's going to be over here. You see how it's telling me that I'm hitting around, it's in the bottom, it just jumped in the bottom corner now, but you see how on the right hand side it tells me I'm hovering around about -42 dB. So now with one click of a button with that key command I just set up, I can turn on the Martin Solveig track, and now I'm getting Martin Solveig's track is coming through. No mastering is being done to his track because I turned it off in the chain there, but I can now see that his track is around -45. So we're in the relatively same ballpark. Now these tracks are two different kinds of tracks, so it's not the best example as far as I told you, get the same genre, the same vibe, but you'll get the idea how this works. So again, I can switch back and forth. So right now, I'm just listening to Martin Solveig's track, and again, for the subs, it's more I'm looking, and I'm saying, okay, is my track crazy loud, or is it crazy low? So now I'm gonna switch back to my track. So I have a little bit more energy in the lows than his does. And that's okay. They don't have to match exactly, but especially if you get a track that's kind of similar, you will be able to get them within a dB or two. And this way you don't have to just try and bump the whole track up. You can say, oh, okay, my lows are a little bit lacking. Let me just go into my, master EQ and I'll bump up the lows a little bit. So now I could go in and say, okay, well, let me check the 250 to 500 hertz range. So I solo that. Now we're listening to my track. And then I'm going to switch over to Martin's track. And you can see that both of these are kind of in the same relative ballpark, which is good. So now I'll go to the highs, 10 to 15. That's my track. Flip to Martin's track. So his is a little bit less in the highs. So again, I'm not going to spend too much time on this because I can't play Martin's song in full anyway. But the point is today, I wanted to show you, again, this is another problem solving tool that I built because I noticed when I'm trying to master my own stuff, once you adjust something in the highs, it's going to affect something in the lows. And it's super easy to get lost when you start, oh, my track's highs aren't as high as this track. So you bump the highs up, but now because you bump the highs up, it's affecting your compressor, your limiter, all of that stuff in your mastering chain. So now the lows are suffering. So what I like to do with this tool is really narrow in, and I'll go through each band and say, okay, is my super sub low lacking? Is my mids lacking? And I'll just go through each band, work through each one, and I may compare it to 3 or 4 different tracks like this. But that way, you no longer have to guess by what you're hearing. You can listen to it, of course, but you can also visually see how much energy on this meter is getting pegged by your track and by your reference track. So it's a super cool tool. I'm going to be putting this up on my website very soon because, again, if you're trying to master your own stuff, it can be super difficult and you can kind of go around in circles a lot of the times because you keep doing all these changes that affect different ones. What's up, Iomod? Mod Vibes. What's going on, man? Thanks for saying hello. Don't forget, you guys, before I wrap up, if you'd like to live chat with me, you don't need any special software. I have that link right there called Chat with Matt. You can click that on your phone or you can do it on your computer. You don't need any special software. Just give it your permission for your mic and your camera, and it'll actually bring you in here on video chat with me live. I'd love to talk to you, and you can ask me if you have any specific questions that you'd like to ask me. This is a new feature that I wanted to try out, so if anybody's got a question before I wrap it up, be sure to give me a call, and I'll put you through, and you can ask your question. So I had one more quick little tip for you guys today as far as mastering goes that I think could also be helpful. And again, all this stuff works in any DAW, FL, Logic, Pro Tools, all of this. So what a lot of people, what's up, Shresh? No problem, dude. Good to see you. What I wanted to tell y'all for the final tip today was, yeah, and if you missed this class today, be sure to go back to the beginning because this mastering tip that I just showed everybody with this mastering tool called Voxengo Span is the name of the plugin. It's a free plugin. It's probably my most favorite metering plugin to use, and it's free. And if you missed the beginning of this, go back to the beginning and you'll see why. So the final thing I wanted to show y'all, I'm going to get rid of Martin's track for now. So on the master channel here, we all know about the master channel, right? FL's got it. Pro Tools has it. Ableton has it. Everybody's got a master channel. Well, using the master channel is cool, but when I'm actually finishing a song, so I'll typically use the master channel just for my normal production part. A lot of the mixing, I'll just do that. But I wanted to show you all this little trick that you can think about and maybe apply to what you do in your DAW. Let's say we have, well, let me just break it down like this since we're covering just mastering today. What I like to do is let me throw in a couple loops real quick just so I can give you all a visual. I'm not going to actually play the loops. So let's pretend we've got this, and this, and this. All right. So we've got these tracks up here. It doesn't matter what they sound like. I'm just using it for a visual today. So we've got these tracks up here. All right. So let's say that these tracks up here are my song, right? And I'm going to turn them off so we don't actually accidentally blow anybody out. So this is, let's say, my drums, this is my bass, this is my vocals, and this is a synth. And then let's say that this track was the final mix. Final mix, right? Now you can use this tip and trick when you're mixing, but I especially like to do it when I'm mastering. So I would be sent, so I did all of this, all of stuff with my tracks. They're mixed, and now here's my final mix right here, right? So what I would probably do is when I get my final mix, I would bring it into the original session because it's kind of a pain in the ass if you mix a song and then you print the mix and then you bring it into a separate session for mastering. There's actually advantages to doing it both ways, but inevitably you have to go back to the mix and change something. It just never fails. So I kind of like to keep all my stuff in the same mix now. So let's say that I had done, let me get rid of all of this. So I did my final mix on my master here, right? And let's also do, like, let me see if I have a mix chain, or let's just do our old standby compressor, EQ, limiter, right? So let's say this was my mixing chain. So what I would do is I would mix my song, and then on the master, I would have my mixing. This would be my mixing chain, right? So if I was just mixing, I might have a limiter, I might not. So I print my mix, I do file, export, blah, blah, blah. It's going to put it on my desktop, and then I would actually drag this final mix back into, because in other words, when I do my mix, it's just going to look like this with these tracks, and then it's going to print it to the master down here, right? So I would then bounce it out and then bring the mix version. I would bring this mix onto a channel here, and then I would go and deactivate all of these channels because I don't need them anymore because the song's mixed, right? So here's my final mix. So what I would do is I would usually take my mixing chain and I would put that on my final mix and save it, and I would label it as something. So I would do save, and I would call it like, the name of the song is I Can See the Sunrise. So I would say I can see the sunrise final mix chain. Now I may have, this would probably be final mix like 8.3. So now whenever I need to, I can go back, and if I need to see what happened, or if I need to redo something on the mix, I can just go grab this mix chain and throw it back on here. Okay? Now, after I get that done, and I'm going to do my mastering, okay? So now, let's get our mastering chain set up. And this is kind of the trick here. So we have our mastering chain set up. Now, once I get it kind of in the ballpark of where I want it to be, I would then, instead of just doing the bounce or the export feature in your DAW, what I'm going to do is take my whole mastering chain and I'm going to put it on just the raw mix here. So now this becomes my mastering chain, and then I'm going to create a new channel, and I'm going to call this Master 1.1, right? Got to keep track of everything. Master 1.1. So then what I'm going to do is I'm going to send my final mix with all the mastering chain stuff on it into Master 1.1. Now, the advantage of doing this is when you just click bounce, there are a lot of people that say this method right here. So in other words, instead of just clicking bounce and the computer is going to calculate it and mix the song in the kind of mathematical way, what you can do here is, because I'm sending my final mix into the Master 1.1, I can actually arm this track now. I've got my mastering chain affecting my mix, and then it's being sent to this master channel. And then what I can do is I can actually record in my master. Now, of course, you want to be careful. I wouldn't have the volume. Let me actually not even do a bad practice there. I don't want to have my volume at 0 on the mix channel. I want to make sure I have it at 0. And then I would record it in. And we don't need to worry about accounting. So you can see it's going to start recording in my track now, right? Now I have the volume way down here just so it doesn't blow us out, but you can hear here. So what happens here is I recorded my track, and now I have my master track, track. You know, you'd go through. Now you do have to wait for the whole thing to play all the way through, which is one disadvantage of this. But some of the advantages are there's a lot of people that say this method sounds better because the mix is actually being, or the master is actually being recorded to a channel. So it's not just the computer calculating everything. It's actually being played through all the plugins, and it gets to sound better that way. I'm not 100% sure whether I believe that or not, although I will say that I usually do this for my final mixes. I will do this, and for my final masters, I will do this. Now, the reason this is a cool thing to do is because, let's say you recorded your whole track out, right? So I'm just going to duplicate this really quick to say that we did. So I went through and I recorded my whole track here, right? So now this is my master. Well, let's say, you know, something gets screwed up in the mastering, or let's say maybe for like one of these drop parts right here, you're like, oh crap, that wound up coming out too low. I should have automated some volume up right there. Well, what you can do is you can automate. So let's say I wanted to automate some volume up here on this breakdown to make it a little bit louder compared to the rest of the track. Well, now, instead of going up and hitting export and then having to wait, you know, for the whole song to export, I can actually just go in right here. I'll do like a couple seconds before it. Turn this down so we don't blow ourselves out. And then I can just record in this one piece of the finished master. So now that I have that in there, I can just kind of zoom in a little bit. And I'll make sure that I'm not on a kick hit or a transient or nothing. And you'll see the song is going to match up pretty well, almost sample accurate. But then I'll just put in a tiny little crossfade, and nobody's ever going to know that I did that. And now I'm going to go on the other side. Same deal. I'll zoom in real quick. Make sure that I'm not on like a kick drum transient where it's going to mess up an attack. And you can see it's almost down to the sample perfect. And I'll just put a tiny little crossfade. So now this actually, looks like I did that crossfade the wrong way there. Sorry. Want to do it like that. And like that. And again, zoom in, make it a nice, super tiny crossfade. Nice, super tiny crossfade. And then you can just consolidate the whole thing, and you're done with your master. Now, this is also a pretty cool trick for your mixing, because how many times have you been mixing something and you go hit, you know, Command B or bounce or whatever your program does, and you realize when you go back and listen in the car, you're like, oh shit, I forgot to unmute this part, or I forgot to edit this vocal, or whatever it may be. This procedure, this trick right here can save you a lot of time, because in the mix, not even just the mastering, but the mixing, you can just go in and print these little bitty sections of your mix that you need to touch up and change. And then just like the same process, just clip them in there, quick little crossfades, and you don't have to wait for the whole song to bounce anymore. So sometimes it's going to make more sense to just bounce the whole thing or print the whole mix. But a lot of times, especially when you are mixing or mastering, this is helpful. You can just do these tiny little sections like this, and you'll be able to just go in and pinpoint the problems. One thing that I used to use this for all the time when I was working in a commercial pro studio where I had clients all the time, they would come in, and especially for rap stuff, they would have all the curse words, right? So you'd have to make a mix with all the curse words, but then you'd have to make a radio mix where you take all the curse words out. Well, once I had the mix done and it was all good and everybody was like, yeah, that's it, that's the final mix, I would have to then go and edit out all these curse words. Well, instead of just reprinting the whole mix every time, I could just go find the sections that had curse words. I would mute the word out in the vocal track, and then I would just print that one little phrase in each part of the mix, do all my crossfades, consolidate. It would take, like 10 minutes. But then what happens is if you forget to do something and the artist calls you or comes back in and says, hey, I just listened in my car and this one part at minute 2:03 is messed up. No problem. I would just go right into minute 2:03. I can see it on my timeline down here. Minute 2:03 is right here. And then boom, boom. And then I would just print it in my new part of the mix right there. Consolidate, crossfade, no problem. So I think that's gonna do it for today, you guys. Once again, be sure, click the Join the Music Producer School community link up there. Make sure you join so I can listen to some of your tracks. I'm interested to hear what y'all are producing. I'll be doing that on Saturday after class. And once again, thank y'all for joining me today. Be sure to share the stream with any of your producer people. Tag some of your producer people so they can come in and join in on some of the fun. And once again, thank y'all for joining me. Go click that Music Producer School community link. And don't forget, I have the new Chat with Matt feature. So if you'd like to call me and chat with me live here on video, you can click that Chat with Matt link right there. And you don't need any special software or anything. And you can ask me questions directly. So I think that'll be pretty fun to be able to talk to some of you guys and girls directly and listen to hear what kind of questions you have. So maybe we'll get on that next time. I appreciate y'all so much for joining me. Y'all have a great day, and I will see y'all again for another class, Mastering Part 3, on Saturday at 12 p.m. Central Time. Y'all have a great one. Peace out.